From palm trees to cherry trees to cedars, Seattle has some of the most diverse tree populations in the country. My next guest wrote a unique illustrated walking guidebook called Street Trees of Seattle to help readers identify the city's most majestic street trees. Welcome to New Day, Taha Ebrahimi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for writing this book, because honest to goodness, we all have done this. What kind of tree is that? I actually posted on Instagram asking someone once. So this is your very first book. You're not an illustrator, nor are you an arborist. But what made you want to write this?
Well, it was during COVID, and I was really interested in trees always. And when I found the data set, so the city publishes this data set that goes back to 1950, I got super interested and obsessed with it. And I just love history. Just seeing the world through the lens of the street trees tells so much.
It so does. That's such a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. And I may have said you're not an illustrator, but I think I am wrong, because these are such fun illustrations in the book. The book is so fun to look through. How did your research go about? I know you were mentioning what the city releases in statistics, but how did you get further research, and how long did it take?
God, it took over 2 years, I want to say.
Okay.
And a lot of it was actually traveling to those specific street trees to validate them and make sure that they were correctly recorded and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Which is key, because now you're like a separate source making sure. And I like that you even write down and draw what each thing looks like, so that when I'm in my backyard and I go, okay, what is this? And I can just open up, well, let's say I live in Queen Anne. I can go, oh, my goodness, that is a ginkgo, just based on the leaf shape.
Oh, thanks.
That is really cool. Okay, so I understand that you were walking around doing your research with like several books in your arm. Like, you were like legit walking around with books. Did you get like weird looks from people?
I got so many weird looks, and you'd be surprised. Like, as soon as someone sees you with like a map, they'll come up to you and ask you what you're doing, and you end up having these really weird, intimate conversations with people. Even though you're a stranger, they want to tell you all about their tree, or what memories they had with the tree, or what the story is. And I learned lots of cool stuff.
That's actually really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and people do connect with trees like that.
Absolutely. You'd be surprised. Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. So what made you decide to tackle the drawings yourself? Because I think you did a fantastic job, and I can understand what they are, but you said, I'm not going to hire someone, I'm going to do this.
Well, honestly, I learned myself by drawing things physically. I'm not the kind of person who learns from an on-screen, thing. And I'm a 3D learner. And it makes sense. We evolved in a three-dimensional world, you know? So this is how I learned how to identify trees, really. So that was part of your education, was drawing something. It makes sense. I mean, that's how I'd rewrite my notes in college to remember them. So I get that. I mean, so many beautiful and fun things. And I want to just point out that every neighborhood seems to have its own set of trees. What did you learn about that? It was fascinating, the different history about the different neighborhoods. Like, I learned that South Park, for example, was the very first neighborhood that had a street that was lined with the same kind of tree. Apparently that was a weird thing back then.
Wow,
so I learned lots of interesting history. What is your favorite tree? Gosh, well, there's this amazing giant sequoia street tree that's in Capitol Hill that's kind of leaning over the street. It's amazing. There is a monkey puzzle street tree in the Ravenna-Bryant area. It's the only monkey puzzle street tree in the entire city. And it turns out that in 1962 at the World's Fair, monkey puzzles were handed out for free. So most of our monkey puzzle trees in general come from that time. That tree must be protected at all costs. At all costs. It sounds amazing, because those monkey puzzle trees, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, get her book or ask the Google machine right now, because those are fascinating and interesting looking trees. What is your favorite time of year for trees? That's another good question. So we live in Seattle. The weather isn't perfect here all the time, and I've gone out in the rain. I've gone out in the snow. I think I went out in the hail one time. In winter, you'd be surprised how cool it is to see the tree shapes and things like that. So I would say I like winter the most, but spring is also fun because of the blossoms. Spring is like the go-to. Come on. I mean, who doesn't love spring? I know. All right, but I do like the answer of winter, because that's, you know what, I think I'll start paying more attention to the structure of the tree. It's amazing, yeah. What do you hope readers take away from the book? I hope hope that this gives people an excuse to get outside. Right now, we spend 93% of our time indoors.
Yeah.
And to just get outside and have a personal connection with nature and to be physically present, that's the most radical thing you can do today.
Yeah.
So I hope that that provides some fun times for people.
I have to say that this is actually something that's great as opposed to, you know, taking a phone and trying to identify it. Like this,
Totally.
It takes you away from the nature. Well, having your book kind of helps you stay in that moment. Do you hope to ever write any walking tree books or any street tree books in any other cities?
You know, I don't know that any other city has as cool of a collection of street trees as Seattle, but I'm willing to find out.
I'm willing to give it a try. Well, thank you so much, Taha.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for collecting all of our history in this book. What a gift. We thank you.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to hear more from Taha, she will be discussing the street trees of Seattle this Wednesday, April 17th at Elliott Bay Book Company. Go check it out and get her book. It's so cool.